Welcome to part 2 of Breaking the Stigma, Menstrual Hygiene Unveiled. My name is Looney. In part 1, we explored what young people think about menstruation and heard some powerful personal stories. Let's recap.
I grew up in a traditional community where menstruation was never openly discussed.
Sometimes I just think these girls have drama because of if a woman is moody, it must be that time of the month.
Many girls come from different backgrounds where their parents are not working, and that makes them to not be able to afford to buy sanitary pads.
I'm the perfect example. I go 8 days in a menstruating cycle.
Missing school affects my education and my confidence. I watch as my classmates progress while I lag behind.
In today's episode, we will be joined by a teacher who will share her experience as an educator and the impact that the lack of access to menstrual hygiene products plays in the day-to-day learning of young women. We will then be joined by experts in the fields of menstrual hygiene who will unravel the science behind menstruation, debunk myths, and provide valuable tips for maintaining menstrual hygiene, as well as talk about on-the-ground initiatives that can assist those struggling with access to menstrual hygiene products. So stay tuned, as after the break, we embark on an educational and eye-opening journey together. Welcome back. In this segment, we'll be speaking with a dedicated educator who will shed light on the impact of lack of access to menstrual hygiene products on students' attendance, academic performance, and self-confidence. Thank you for joining us today. Can you start by telling us about your experience with students who struggle to access menstrual hygiene products?
Hi there, my name is Peggy Dikeledi Mushokwa. I'm working at Olivenhout Bosch Secondary as a life science teacher. I've experienced a lot of problems when it comes to a girl child. The problem is that where there is a lack of sanitary pads at schools, girls experience a lot of problem, and this problem will end up affecting their performance in class as well as their self-worth.
So how does the lack of access to menstrual hygiene products impact the students' attendance and participation in school?
We know that as Africans, poverty takes a lead. And in most cases, you find out that most of the learners do not come to school during the period of menstruation. Let's say a girl menstruates for a period of 3 days. It will take her 3 days not to come to school. And obviously, it will affect their performance. For an example, the teacher will be teaching in class and they are not there. And when they come back and they are supposed to perform in writing something, they will end up performing bad because they were not there when the topic was taught in class.
And what about their academic performance? How does this issue impact their results?
Obviously, there will always be a decline in result. In most cases, you could see that the performance of boys was always told, or boys do better than girls. Now we have realized, or this was because of lack of sanitary pads in schools. Girls were not doing well because most of the time they will be absent. And then boys, because they are always there, they will always perform. Obviously, their performance as girls is always low because of no support.
It sounds like this issue goes beyond just physical discomfort. How does it affect student self-confidence and overall well-being?
Imagine as a girl, you do not have sanitary pads. You will end up coming up with means. Let's say as teachers, we tell you are going to write a test and there are no sanitary pads at home. You will end up using something like a newspaper. You will end up using something that is not comfortable to you. And at the end, it will affect you because you know deep down what is it that we have used, and you know it cannot protect you just like the sanitary pads. You know leakage can happen, and therefore your self-confidence will always be down because you know what is it that you have used instead of using the right material.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights on this important issue. It's clear that addressing the lack of access to menstrual hygiene products is essential for promoting the well-being and academic success of all learners. After the break, we bring in the experts. See you then. Welcome back. Joining me now is Dululu Hlachaneni, who is the Program Manager in School Gender Empowerment from DBE, as well as Andile Dube, who is the Education Manager, Quality and Systems Training from UNICEF. Hello, Sis Andile. Hello, Mama D. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
As you saw from some of the answers we received, there are many misconceptions out there. These range from menstruation is a sign of impurity, menstrual blood is unclean, that menstruating girls and women need to refrain from some activities, all the way to menstruation is solely a woman's issue and not relative to men. Mama D and Sis Andile, can you please just take us through the truth of some of these misconceptions so that we can challenge them?
It is important to understand that menstruation is a natural process, and every girl is going to go through the menstruation. And this menstruation is not dirty blood, it is very clean, it is normal. It is something that indicates that your reproductive system actually is working as a girl child. So we need not to run away or refrain from us understanding what menstruation is and supporting our young girls when they go through their menses.
Yes. And Sis Andile, can you also touch on some of the misconceptions?
I think we have to start by saying girls must know that menstruation is a normal process of puberty. Everyone gets into that stage. Boys, puberty reflects differently, and girls, it is menstruation in the main. And it's very normal. It's kind of difficult for girls because there's so much misconception around how girls should behave, what menstruation is, some cultural and beliefs that actually affect girls' experiences in menstruation. For an example, girls are not allowed in some areas to go play with boys because there's a belief that if they play with boys, they'll get pregnant. That's a misconception. You don't get pregnant by playing. Yes. So girls must be comfortable and be able to play with whoever they need to play with. Secondly, there are cultures where girls are kept indoors and they are told not to go outside because of menstruation. I think some of those cultural beliefs really affect girls' experiences with menstruation. And lastly, as mentioned, the blood is a natural process for girls, and it's experienced differently. So it's really important that girls are capacitated, they are taught, they are supported during their menstruation, and not be taught or be raised with those myths and misconceptions.
Thank you so much for addressing that, because there was also a myth there that said it's only a woman's issue, it's not relative to men. Is there anything you want to touch on that just to address that misconception as well?
Oh yes, it is important to ensure that boys become part within the space of understanding what menstruation is. There is one misconception that surrounds the pain, you know, and I know for a fact that boys always, kind of like blame girls, that they are actually exaggerating without really understanding that pain is different from one girl to the next. So it cannot be a one size fits all. So those are the kind of nuances that we want our boy children to understand, so that they are able to support young girls when they go through such instances in their lives on a monthly basis, of course.
Thank you so much, Mama D. Sis Andile, do you have anything to add?
I think Dudu has covered it very well. Boys and men
must know enough about menstruation so that they're able to support girls and women in their lives. And sometimes women just need that guy who is going to run and get them pads. And unless girls, I mean men and boys, understand that, they won't feel stigmatized if they have to support women during that time, or when they have to run that errand for the girl, or understand when the girl has bloated themselves, how to help them without laughing at them or stigmatizing that person during their period.
Yes, and I think it's so important just to highlight the fact that menstruation, it's not a curse. It's a natural occurrence.
Definitely.
It happens to the woman's body, and what matters the most is that we educate both boys and girls on how to accommodate one another and teach each other how to live around one another during this process. In addition to what we've addressed, there are other misconceptions such as you cannot get pregnant while you are menstruating, or you are not a virgin if you use tampons. A common one from boys and men is that if a woman is moody, then it's probably that time of the month. Sis Andile and Mamadi, can you please share your thoughts on this?
It's quite important to deal with misconceptions and some of those myths because they really define how the girls will experience their periods from the time they are girls up till when they are women later in life. And we do want girls to experience their periods as something that is normal and as something that is going to be with them for a very long time in life. And so firstly, the misconception or the myth about you not, or a girl who uses a tampon is not a virgin is just that, it is a myth. Tampons are one of the options that girls and women have during their periods. You could choose to use a tampon, you could choose to use pads. But of course, for some women or girls, using a tampon might not be comfortable or might be painful. And again, it's a choice for each of the girls or women. So use what is comfortable for you, use what keeps you clean, and use what makes your period or that time to be comfortable for you. And in addition, we need to deal with this myth that you cannot get pregnant during your periods. Of course, that is your least fertile period as a woman or as a girl, but there are chances that you get pregnant. Very limited, but you must always deal with the time of the month as any normal time, which is what we encourage girls. Girls must know that likelihood of getting pregnant is there. Girls must practice the same safety they would even when they are not going through their period. You still have to abstain, you still have to protect yourself, you still have to use contraceptives, you still need to know that there are other factors that are come into play if you are having unprotected sex as a girl or a woman.
Mamadi?
In addition with what Andile has just said, there is one of the most common myths which men and boys like to say it is that time of the month and therefore girl children or women are very moody. So you don't want to do anything with them. Some of them, they even be shunned away and they have to be kept indoors so that they are then believed that they are moody and they are not going to be able to do any other chores because they have to undergo that time of the month. So it is important for us to stress around what these are myths and these are only myths, nothing else. In addition, it is important to note that during this time, girls are likely to experience hormonal imbalances. And this results in some of them experiencing excruciating pain. And obviously, during the time when you experience pain, I don't think everyone would be just easy to deal with. So girls really need to be understood that it is not really because they like it, but sometimes it is things that are beyond their control.
Yes. I think just to add on to that is it's just always very important to know that men, just like women, have emotions. You know, it's not being moody. It's not something that needs to be criticized. It's just normal emotions. Thank you so much, ladies. I really, really enjoyed that session and such great expert advice as well. So I truly hope that this discussion has helped our viewers as well to gain a deeper and better understanding of menstrual hygiene and has dispelled some of the myths surrounding it. So when we return from the break, get ready to explore a range of menstrual hygiene practices, alternative methods, and on-the-ground initiatives that are making a real difference. We'll see you now. Welcome back, everyone. Now, let's talk about some good menstrual hygiene practices. What are some key habits that individuals should adopt to ensure proper menstrual hygiene?
That is such a good question because the girls would have just started experiencing menstruation, and in most cases we find that awareness is very low. Education for girls is quite low, and so these questions also helps the girls who are just about to start their menstruation or who haven't had that capacity, whether being trained at home or being trained or capacitated through the schooling system. So what is important for girls is to always keep yourself clean. It's quite important to be clean, to adopt very good hygiene practices. That way you don't feel uncomfortable, you don't feel like you're smelling, and so on and so on. And so bathing, taking care of yourself, the body, is quite important. It's also quite important to change your pads regularly. And the good time to change pads is at least every 4 hours. You check your pad, but for some people, they might be having heavy flows, and checking regularly is also quite important for each girl. So check yourself, learn about your body, know your flow, know how often you need to change a pad. UNICEF is also supporting an app called Oki app that helps girls just manage their menstrual cycle. You keep yourself clean, you know your cycle, you remember to bring a pad. If you don't have a pad, you go to your school, whoever is responsible, and you have access to different types of products.
Mamadi?
It's just really to add what Andile has indicated. It really emphasizes the issue of keeping yourself clean and your hygiene being very on top priority, because in that way you are also preventing unnecessary health challenges that you might experience, like you might have infections, and if you are not really keeping yourself very hygienic and very clean during that period, those are the other unnecessary, unintended consequences that you can experience as a girl child.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. As we continue our discussion on menstrual hygiene, I'm eager to hear about the on-the-ground initiatives. Sis Andile, you also mentioned an app. You're involved in just to assist the communities with no access to menstrual products and hygiene. Could maybe each of you share some of the insights into the projects or the programs you're actively engaged in?
Okay, from our side is the department. Of course, because we are a department that gives quality learning and teaching, the curriculum covers issues around menstrual hygiene in particular phases within the curriculum system. That is one key point that we need to mention. But second to that, government in general, led by the Department of Women, there is what is called sanitary dignity framework. So this is a framework that government tries to ensure that the services of sanitary dignity is given to young girls, but also to those indigent women who may need the service. So within the framework, there is a number of issues that most of them we have touched as we were engaging with the topic, and issues around stigma, for instance, issues around your health and being hygienic, but also issues around access to the products, but also access to water, but also issues around that speaks to the disposals of the pads once they are sold. So there is that framework that also government is really, trying to raise awareness, but also assists in terms of service delivery in terms of that.
And Sis Andile, on your side?
As UNICEF, our role is to support government and government initiatives. So what we do is to support the implementation of the sanitary dignity framework that Bamdi was referring to, just ensuring that what the aspect that needs to be implemented are implemented well in schools, and monitor and support some of the interventions. Secondly, we do a lot of work in supporting the curriculum, which has already been mentioned, whether it's the curriculum review, whether it's new edition, particularly on the comprehensive sexuality education as part of the curriculum. The third issue is, as UNICEF, we also support the core curricular activities. For an example, we're currently working very closely with department to implement programs that deal with awareness, and that deals with behavioral change in some of the selected provinces. This is about getting girls to be aware of their puberty the same way that boys are aware of their puberty, but also getting girls and boys to together understand their changes in the body and how can boys support girls. And that is part of some of the awareness programs that we have. We also support the department in WASH-related programs, that is water and sanitation and hygiene-related programs. We encourage that, for an example, schools be very aware of what girls need during their period. So whether we are talking about having privacy in the toilet, having keys, making sure that it's lockable, making sure that there's light, but also making sure that schools provide access to children for water, because water is quite critical during the time of menstruation. Girls need to clean themselves, girls need to change their pads, they need to wash their hands, and so we work with schools to make sure that that is provided for the girls in schools that we work with. The most important issue is how do we get parents involved? So part of the interventions that we support the department on are about parental involvement for the overall sexuality and reproductive health programs. And so it's quite a lot of buckets of interventions that start from curriculum support to co-curricular support, to looking at how policies are implemented, to advocacy and mobilization, but also just interestingly working together with schools to say we need to make sure that girls are provided with infrastructure, have access to different types of pads or of products, that they have very safe and conducive wash areas to use during their periods.
Thank you so much for your inspiring work. Mama D, did you want to add?
Yes, of course. Just to add and accentuate some of what my colleague Andile has indicated.
Okay.
We do have the guidelines, and you would understand that framework can be very technical and be very high level, and schools would therefore not get a really sense of how they need to make this work easy for girl children. And a lot of from curriculum to co-curricular work that Andile has indicated that they are assisting the department with, it's what is within our guidelines.
It's clear that initiatives make a real difference in improving menstrual hygiene in schools and communities. And that's a wrap for this series. In this episode, we delved into intricate details of the menstrual cycle, learned about the essential menstrual hygiene practices, debunked myths, and had the privilege of hearing from remarkable individuals working to improve menstrual hygiene in our schools and communities. But our journey doesn't end here. We encourage you, our viewers, to continue this conversation. Ask questions, share your experiences, and support initiatives that promote menstrual hygiene in your communities. Remember, knowledge is power, and together we can create a world where menstrual hygiene is not a taboo, but a topic discussed openly and compassionately with awareness and empathy. We look forward to exploring more critical topics in the future. Until then, keep the conversation going and seek reliable sources for more information on menstrual hygiene.